Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willis. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis, your host. Today, we're honored to have Bella DeVaan. She is the Associate Director of the Charity Reform Initiative at the Institute for Policy Studies. We'll be discussing the Living Pledge, which is struggling to fulfill its purpose. Very kind to have you here, Bella. How are you doing this morning?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, first of all, let me just tell you that the work that you are doing, first of all, it's not only impressive, it's important. And I don't know how much you follow what we do, but we think that if you have to succeed, absent you succeeding, the country is in dire straits. Tell us a little bit about what you do. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself first. How did you get involved in this?
Thank you so much. Well, since I've been a young person, I've been really interested in philanthropy and charity and sort of how it creates and advocates and expresses a worldview. How when people have extra money to give, they want to be as generous as they can be and give back to people. For most regular people, that looks like helping out the people you know. It looks like remittances. It looks like direct aid. It looks like giving something directly. But through my upbringing, through my education, I started to learn more about how philanthropy works. I was studying the history of the Gilded Age. I also grew up in Seattle, where I learned a lot about big philanthropy, funded a lot by fortunes from technology like Microsoft. And I started to see how wealthy people give really differently than normal people. And when they try to express their worldview, sometimes that's really out of step with what the public would actually want. And it's not fair because our tax code has positioned philanthropy to be this sort of social contract that when people make extra money, when they get wealthier, this has been well established in American culture, they're supposed to give back. That's sort of how they say thank you for their success. That's also how they sort of keep their position in society and keep people from getting more angry, frankly, at how absurdly wealthy they're becoming. And what I've learned about philanthropy in my time as I'm kind of a scholar, I research, I do editing. We work on a really interesting research team at the Institute for Policy Studies, which is a traditional think tank based in Washington, D.C., but we study militarism, pollution, corporate power, and think about how we can use the information we get to equip social movements. And so our small research team is really interested in looking at how charity and philanthropy actually operates. And what I've learned through this process is that our system is really broken. And there's a public commitment that many billionaires have made to give away half of their fortunes in their lifetime that they are not fulfilling. And so that's the focus of this report. We put out reports all the time on how philanthropy shapes our tax system, how every other year we do a report called Gilded Giving, which is really about the intersection of inequality and philanthropy. But this report is sort of a status check on the billionaires who've pledged 15 years ago to give half of their wealth away in their lifetime or upon their death. And spoiler alert, it is not looking good. Collectively, the pledgers who signed in 2010, who are still billionaires, are collectively 283% wealthier. And the vast majority of their gifts go to intermediaries that they control. And we can talk more about what that actually looks like and really get into the weeds. But I hope that answers your question. And thank you so much for having me.
Well, look, thank you. And, I was concerned about how this interview would go for one reason. You handle in philanthropy. This study is about philanthropy. And I didn't know exactly what direction to take because I do have a problem with how the wealthy gets wealthy. But again, having just the narrative that you just gave, and I didn't know from what perspective you're going to come from. And let me just say that you came from the perfect perspective in understanding that you have to make a change with what you have. You would prefer if things were otherwise, but what we do have is a hell of a lot of billionaires out there. How do we get those billions recirculated into the economy? And one of the methods one of the intended methods, however imperfect, was using that pledge that you're going to throw that back into the economic system but that pledge, if it, and when you said it, it really hit me. I'm like, you get it. When you said it is unfair that because they have all that wealth, they're able to set policy and having what you guys want them to enforce, the pledge to give back, you unburden them from putting their character into the policies and making it be the public access as it should be. Expand more on that, if you will.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think this pledge was really important when it was founded. It was founded by Bill Gates and his then wife, Melinda French, and Warren Buffett. They really embodied this kind of, I don't want to say like good billionaire posture.
Actually, I think it's a good thing to say. I do think so. Yeah, right.
I think they believed that they had a public commitment they had to make and fulfill that was like, look, general public, like we know we're really rich. We know we owe something to society. And they wanted to create this community and this voluntary effort to encourage other billionaires to get involved. To also, there's kind of a pattern in American philanthropy that people give money away how they make it. And so it was very in keeping with their sort of wealth creation and their personal histories. Bill Gates was raised in a really philanthropic family to create this community where other billionaires could share best practices, build on their philosophies together, meet up, potentially collaborate on projects. And it's definitely true that creating the pledge created a sort of public mandate and also created a fashion for the billionaire cohort, which is really important because they really influence each other, and they really care deeply about how they're perceived because they know the fragility of their position in society when the economy feels rigged for so many people. And so the pledge has been really important because it has unlocked a lot of generosity. This is the story of big philanthropy. Two things can be true at once. Billionaires can be being generous and funding life-saving medical interventions and global health aid and new technology. And they are also sitting on too much and not doing enough and over-influencing the sector. And so their most giving pledgers have been fulfilling their pledges by giving to intermediary organizations like foundations and funds that they control. And while they get maybe tax reductions up front, it takes many years for those gifts to actually reach the public because most of these foundations don't give everything away every year. They are operating in perpetuity. They give away, our median that we calculated is 9.2%. And so there's that lag time that keeps those pledges from being fulfilled and makes the reputational benefits of giving and pledging up front not match up with what is actually given to the public.
You mentioned something about taxes. I want to tackle that because I think your report also said something about that with regards to when someone donates some money, if they're taking the deductions of it from it, it actually also removes money from the coffers proper, right?
That's how we feel. We think that we need to think about philanthropy as a taxpayer expenditure because for every dollar a billionaire gives to charity, it's estimated that the regular taxpayer is chipping in 74 cents in lost tax revenue. And that's a really meaningful trade-off. We're giving wealthy people the voluntary control over money that they would be paying otherwise in taxes to fund what the tax base needs, roads, healthcare. And that doesn't seem quite right if the public doesn't understand how the philanthropy is actually being administered.
There's a deeper thing that has occurred, especially in a new bill that has passed. And I don't know if your organization was able to get to that yet or not. So I'm going to put it out there and you can tell me if you guys had reached that analysis yet.
Yeah.
There are several options in this bill where a philanthropist can give 100% to, let's say, a scholarship given organization, give appreciated stocks to the scholarship administration and get 100% back on that appreciated tax, not in a deduction, but in a tax credit that in effect allows them to donate money, get the good feeling and get it right back from us, the taxpayer. I don't know if you guys got that deep into the new bill since it's so new since the report.
The new bill is so interesting for so many reasons, and that's an interesting example. I mean, I think we've really been paying attention to how it was going to tax endowments and universities, because that's sort of channeling this righteous populist concern about this accumulation of wealth in separate bodies that isn't sending that wealth back out. There's also a new charitable tax. There's like a universal deduction that everybody can take, or it's not a deduction, but it's like everyone who doesn't itemize their taxes can take off a certain amount of
Mm-hmm.
money that they're giving to charity. So that's an interesting democratization of the practice. Although when you balance it with all the other ways people are going to get shortchanged by the bill, how they're going to lose their health insurance and their food benefits, how does it all tally up? Not great. This still amounts to a massive wealth transfer to the richest people in America. So there's what the bill does show, because I can't weigh in specifically on that
Mm-hmm.
example, is this dynamic relationship that we have to giving and how the tax code ought to shape and incentivize the ways that people give. And a tendency for our laws as of the last 50 years to disproportionately benefit wealthy people who can give unrealized assets, who can, move money around, can benefit maximally from the tax rules and regulations that they often help shape, or at least advocate for certain versions of. And, is that what giving really should be? As we regulate it in America, we don't think so.
Now, let me ask you about, I haven't seen this part of your studies or know if this is in the study, but you know quite a bit. I'd like your opinion on it. You've talked about things like unrealized gains, etc. But one of the biggest gains I find is the economic system and how it creates wealth. The How do you all feel about the folks who actually got wealthy? Do you feel that this is wealth based on worth or wealth based on a flawed system?
I think it's wealth based on a flawed system.
Thank you.
And the accumulation of money that is almost impossible for some of these pledgers to give away fast enough to fulfill the pledge proves that.
Mm-hmm.
They've gotten collectively 283% wealthier. Some pledgers, like Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan, have gotten over 4,000%
4,000%.
wealthier
Yeah.
since they signed the pledge. And, I think some assertions that it's impossible to give money away or to part with that vast wealth are a bit absurd. But I actually do think it's quite hard to administer thoughtful and strategic philanthropy when your wealth is accumulating so quickly. I also think it's worth noting that this wealth isn't all cash. It's inflated stock value.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all realized. It's not all concrete. But this is a product of working people that is channeled to the wrong place. And there's some interesting examples in here of
that's a beautiful that's such a beautiful statement. Repeat that for audience. I want one of the reasons that I love to interview young scholars, it's because they understand much better than those of us who were indoctrinated by a failed system. My dear, please repeat that again.
Well, I don't remember what I exactly said, but just this idea that this wealth is created by working people and it's channeled away from them. It's channeled.
That's what you said.
Yes. And I think that exchange isn't quite fair. It's not quite right. It's not appropriate to the work that's actually been done. But then you can also see all these outgrowths of this, all these consequences of this in the philanthropic sector. There's examples in our report of wealthy people who give stock gifts into their foundations that have ballooned in value. And, they maybe didn't give a huge proportion of their wealth, but now it looks like so much more. And there's just tons of examples of this that prove, I think there should be a fair distribution of wealth in the first place. And the main policy recommendation of this report, we have a lot of ideas that are we've polled with people all across the political spectrum. Everybody thinks that the system is a little ridiculous once they learn about how it actually works, that we're subsidizing legacy foundations, that foundations aren't giving money away as quickly as they're growing. But our main recommendation for this to be a serious report is that we need to more fairly tax wealth and more fairly distribute it, because clearly the system is not creating anything that's working.
It is interesting. Earlier, you mentioned that even though some of this wealth is unrealized, I saw funny and please don't discount my seriousness when I say I saw a funny TikTok that spoke about about wealth, and it also spoke about people who keep their money in stock, not wanting to pay a tax on wealth, saying, "But it's not realized, so we don't want to pay taxes on it." But at the same time, while they don't pay taxes on it, they take out loans on their stocks,
and then they get to live tax free,
and then they get to live tax. Oh, explain a little bit to our audience about that.
I mean, there's so many brilliant tax evasion strategies that our beloved American billionaires deploy. But there's a great ProPublica piece I would point everyone to that sort of explains the buy, borrow, die philosophy and ways that basically our wealthiest people don't take income in the way that we all do and have to pay taxes on it. They live off of these lines of credit that help them spend and accumulate based against their stock holding and the value of it. And then they don't have to pay income tax the way that regular people do. And it's almost cartoonish the way that it's a sort of abdication of responsibility that these people are supposed to make up for with their philanthropy.
And again, all of this can be changed by an informed population. Exactly. Electing the right people who are willing to write the laws that prevent most of us from being, a nice term, screwed by the wealthy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think with studying this issue, knowing how philanthropy is such a huge part of everyone's life, even if they don't recognize it, there's just not enough public awareness of how it actually works, And that's what we strive to do with all of our publication, is to just really make sure everybody has the information that's publicly available. Putting a report together of this scope is really difficult because billionaires don't report everything that they do. It's hard to track their wealth. It's hard to track their gifts. They also love to use different anonymizing vehicles so they can exert influence in ways we can't track or add their name to. But when you do put together the facts that are available, unless we get other information, this picture is really, really clear.
All right. We're coming close to the end of the interview. So what I want to ask you to do is give us a tick-tock of your report. Take as much time as you need to give us a tick-tock of your report. Okay. And then we'll have a couple of closing statements.
All right. Well, as I said at the beginning, the main finding of our report is that when you look at the 57 families or couples or individuals who signed the Giving Pledge in 2010, which is when it was invented 15 years ago, they were about 14% of America's billionaires. The ones who are still billionaires are worth collectively 283% more than when they signed to give away half their wealth in their lifetimes or upon their death. This factors in this calculation, publicly available gifts that we know of. If those pledges were fulfilled today, that would unleash an estimated $370 billion today. And to compare that to the amount of money that everybody gives to charity in 1 year, that's around just under $400 billion. They're about the same amount. That's 32 units of wealth versus the rest of the hundreds of millions of Americans. That's a lot.
A lot, yes.
There are 22 pledgers who have passed away. Only one gave away his entire fortune, a man named Chuck Feeney, who founded the Duty Free Shoppers. 8 of the 22 deceased pledgers fulfilled their pledge. But again, that's not 100% fulfillment. So we need to be keeping, accountability flowing for people who've signed on to this pledge. The other main finding I really want people to walk away with is that 80% of the gifts we could track go to intermediary groups. That looks like private foundations and donor-advised funds. When regular people give to charity, 100% of their gift reaches its final destination. But these foundations and donor-advised funds foundations have a 5% mandatory minimum payout every year, 5%. A lot of them grow faster than that. The median payout rate we've been able to calculate for the groups that these billionaires use is around 9.2%. That keeps pace with market gains. So keeping the funds in existence for perpetuity, not spending down. For the most part, there's examples in every direction. Donor-advised funds, which are a really popular new vehicle, they're administered often by commercial funds. They don't have any payout requirement, and they're also anonymizing if you'd like them to be. So these are ways for people to channel billions of dollars.
Explain anonymizing as you continue, because a lot of people won't get that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that means that you can give a gift to charity and rinse your name off of the donation. Donor-advised funds are used by people like Leonard Leo to help orchestrate their
politics
network. There's ways to exert politics by using these funds. It makes gifts look like they don't come from an individual, but from a sponsored fund in totality. We think those regulations need to change, of course. And then wealthy people also give through LLCs and are investigating and starting to use a collapse between the boundary of like a nonprofit gift and a business gift. And so they're sort of thinking through how to administer charity and as like more of a venture. And that has, gifts don't receive the same tax benefits, but there can be more secrecy, there can be more self-dealing. There's all kinds of other issues that come into play there. There are examples of people who are on track to fulfill their pledge. There's a couple, John and Laura Arnold, who already have by giving gifts to their foundation. We're also very interested in Mackenzie Scott, who's the former wife of Jeff Bezos of Amazon, who's given away over $19 billion in wealth. Of course, it hasn't decreased her wealth by as much because she keeps getting wealthier. She can't stop, but she gives in a timely way. She gives abundantly. She gives in a trust-based way that says, frontline groups, how to give this money away better than I do. I'm giving you this gift without exerting any kind of will or without needing the gift to be directed to my specifications. I trust you. And we think that's a really important fulfillment strategy. The giving pledge should work. We have it. We need it for a reason. We encourage the signatories to take after Chuck Feeney or take example from Mackenzie Scott and give abundantly, seed control meaningfully in their lifetimes. And we also think that really meaningful regulations to fix this problem would look like increasing the payout regulations on private foundations, increasing transparency, and taxing wealth and income at a fair rate. So I would say that's our main TikTok. You can go to our report for specific examples. You'll learn a lot about people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and people you've never heard of, how they are conceiving of their charitable responsibility and fulfilling their pledge or not. So we really encourage you to check it out. Our website is ips-dc.org. You can find it there.
And I'll have that in the blog. I mean, you said something that was really eye-boggling. If these guys are paying at 9%, but they can also grow at 9%, and the economy is growing at under 2%, that simply means that the wealthy and even the wealthiest foundations constantly grow faster than the economy, which means they are eating everybody else's clock, reducing everybody in the future to something that is unsustainable. You can't have a small sector of the economy growing at orders of times what the economy at large grows without saying that you're actually taking it away from everybody.
That's an interesting way to look at it. And we warn in the report that if also with donations growing these foundations, which we think is really important, if we keep this trend, these foundations are going to be worth trillions of dollars, controlled by dynastic families.
Right.
That's not going to be healthy for our democracy to have.
Well, it's a
shielded concentration of wealth.
It's a mathematical impossibility that you're not taking that it degrades into taking all the wealth away. It's just a mathematical formula, If you're growing at 9% and the economy at large is growing at 2%, that is only sustainable until you've taken it all. That's just math. But then go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say it's just harrowing to think about the ways that these groups are going to keep getting more and more powerful for fewer and fewer people.
Well, they won't, because we have people like you and others doing the research. I'm glad for the work that you're doing. What should I have asked you that I didn't?
I think we covered everything. I'm so happy to be here with you and happy to come talk about philanthropy and charity with you anytime.
Great. I appreciate that. We've been speaking to Bella DeVaan. She's the Associate Director of the Charity Reform Initiative at the Institute for Policy Studies. Thank you so kindly for having been here on Politics Done Right.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
You too now. Today, I'm honored to have Gion C. Thomas. Gion C. Thomas is an activist, organizer, and former congressional candidate, specific of District 38, who wants both a better Houston and a better America that gives everyone equal access to success. And in that light, he does quite a bit of activities and organizing to ensure that, yes, we are on the right path. Senor Gion C. Thomas, how are you doing this morning, my friend?
I am great, Alberto. Thank you so much for having me. I've been a huge fan of Politics Done Right for the past couple of years. I'm so happy to be on.
Well, I'm honored to have you, my brother. Thank you very much for being here. Look, one of the reasons I'm contacting you is I was told by a good friend at KPFT that you are putting on some events here in town that we need to make sure that Houstonians know about, because again, like we say, you're an organizer and you want, and in these times especially, we need to get things done. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
So yes, we are having the organizers town hall August 7th at the Bayou City Event Center. It is an event bringing organizers from around the city, state, and country to come together to talk about redistricting, to talk about the issues that we're hearing in our communities, and what's the pathway forward for 2026, and how we can better involve our communities and young people in this process. Because as we know, uh, young people always take the lead in times like this. So we've got to learn, or we've got to inform people how to get our young people more involved.
I'm glad that you said that about young people, because you're talking about getting young people involved. I find that in these times, the people that are more outspoken, the people that are fearless, the people that are willing to make the change necessary are coming from our youth, whether that be Maxwell from South from Miami, from California, I mean from Florida, whether that be Lee from Pennsylvania. Our young people are stepping up. They're correcting a lot of the mistakes that my generation, to put it bluntly, have done to this country. So I want to provide whatever platform I can that our young people can go out there and, get a job done. So tell us a little bit more about what's going to happen out there.
So at the town hall, we have orgs like Black Voters Matter, Engage, Me Familia Vota, 5150, the group that has been doing the national orgs
Right.
around the country. We're going to have some representatives there. And the whole process and the whole idea of this town hall is to come together. Expert leaders in their field and tell the community and help the community how we need to go forward. I feel like, Alberto, you alluded to something. The consulting class has the political consulting class has ran this country down into the ground with their bad messaging, with their bad policies. And so, it's time to listen to the people who's on the ground, who's doing the work, who are in the communities, who know how to better message to the communities.
I'm glad that you said that, because I've spoken a whole lot about that on the program. That class, that political class, consultant class, they don't come and hug the people. They don't come and break bread with the people. They stay in an isolated office, assuming they know what the people are. One of the things that I love when I was told that you were putting on this project is like, wow, yes, we have to keep being on the ground and listening to what the people had to say. I had a piece that I'm playing later on one of my programs. An 18-year-old kid was able to articulate what the problem was so well. Something that is given so many people a problem to articulate. We have Mamdani, a 30-something-year-old young man winning in New York. He has hit a message that people listen to, because he feels their needs, he feels their pain. And we have the consultant class that are preventing our leaders, Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer, from actually supporting this person.
Yeah.
One of the reasons we must have folks like you involved, Gion, is that you have the pulse of the people. They don't. Your response.
Yeah. Like you were saying, and not only the consulting class, but Alberto, you talked about young people. We feel the effects of all the past generations, of all their failings. And so it's up to us to fix it. I mean, we are the ones that are mostly affected by it. And you talk about Mandani. Mandani had a message of affordability. Forget socialism, forget communism, whatever, the right and the corporate Dems try to plaster on him. His message was about affordability. That is something that speaks to all Americans right now. I mean, as you see, grocery prices are insane. I mean, $260 the other day I spent on groceries. That is absolutely insane. And didn't even buy that much stuff. But groceries are are you can't afford them. And so, Mandani talked about affordability politics. Young organizers, we're there on the ground. We're talking to the people. Alberto, I know people who don't have doors. They do not have doors on their homes. And it is disingenuous for me to go there and ask them to go vote for somebody when in their current situation, it's no better. So, these politicians, these elected officials, they've got to understand that people are facing huge deficits right now, huge deficits, and the messaging has to change. The accountability has to change. What they're doing has got to change.
Kamala Harris collected over $1.2 billion in monies for her campaign. You have been active on the ground for a long time around Houston, and as well as many other young activists. I have a question for you, Mr. Gion C. Thomas. How much money did you get from to help you move the message to bring votes out? Let's say, assuming you would have supported her, how much money did they give you to say, please help us get the vote out?
Zero, zero, zilch. Kamala Harris got $1 billion and didn't circulate any of that money back into the community. Didn't circulate that money uh, back to nonprofit orgs that do the work. I mean, it was a total waste of money. And that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. That goes back to the consulting class. She spent all of that money on radio and TV ads. Hell, you look at Colin Allred, yeah, a story closer to home. Unlike Beto's race in 2018 and 2020, Beto had a full state ground game that employed a lot of people.
Hmm.
Say what you will about Beto, but Beto paid people. He got people money. He got people first coming up, having a chance. Kamala Harris, Colin Allred, that more corporate style of messaging. I mean,
It
they've
doesn't
spent
work.
all their money. It doesn't work, and they spent it all on TV ads. People aren't watching TV anymore.
TV ads and expensive consultants and people that are just there to take
The money.
the hard-earned dollars of a lot of, I have so many friends, Gian, that were out there. We got to support Kamala, and they're sending money via all these different methods and and it never got back to the people that are actually doing the work. And that is one of the messages that I'm trying to get out there as well. And I'm so happy that you are out there on the ground talking to the people. And one of the things that I want for those that are for for those that have the few dollars out there, when you go to these different meetings that folks like Gian has and other activists have out there, and if they go around and try to collect a few bucks around the plate, remember these guys are out there on the ground, hugging people, touching people, bleeding with people. And let me tell you, they are out there doing the work for all of us. The guy that sits down in that consultant office, he's playing with numbers, and half the time those numbers ain't right. And why aren't they right? Because they don't know the people. They make a few phone calls and say this is a representative view of what America looks like. But if you don't know America, you can't sample America. Polling is about sampling, having a representative sample. If you don't know America, you don't know how to build a representative sample. Anything else you want to add about? I tell you what, beforehand, tell us again about your meeting. Tell us again about your organization.
So I'll start with telling a little bit more about our organization. So we are the POP organization, Protest, Organize, Participate. We are a 501(c)(4) organization, and we focus on getting young people registered to vote and more politically active. And we also have a huge community component where we do mutual aid. So we feed the unhoused, give out dignity and care packages to low-income families, hand out clothes. So that is our mission. Our mission is there's a gap between what the government should be doing and what they're not doing, and we try and fill in that gap. And so this upcoming Thursday, we have the Organizers Town Hall. It is a town hall with organizers, like I said, from around the state, around the city, state, and country coming together to have a conversation about redistricting, what are we hearing in our communities, and how to better involve young people. And we have social media influencers. Conscious Lee's going to be there. Former Harris County Chair Otis he's going to be.
Otis, yeah, right.
Yeah, he's going to be speaking on the redistricting panel. So, and we have three different panels, and it's going to be very, very intense, great conversation. This is an event to really inform the public.
Now, let me ask you, are you going to be able to do some live streaming as well, or is it just going to be in person?
I think it's only going to be in person. We were trying to set up the live streaming, but
No, no,
we
I understand. The reason
yeah.
I'm asking that is I hope I hope even if you're not live streaming that you get somebody to tape it
Oh, we have
or
several people recording the event. We have several
yeah.
people. Yeah.
And just because I know it's going to be an impactful event, and we don't want to let all of that good work that you guys do not get a bigger blast out there. And in fact, if you get it and you give me and you allow me to, maybe I'll cut some of it down into pieces that we can actually put out there for if you assume
Oh, yeah.
so I mean if you don't have anybody else doing that, I consider that we would like to have that material as well.
Berto, I would love that. I would love that. After we get the film cut down and stuff, we'll definitely send it over.
Yeah, that would be great. Give me a closer. What would you like to tell our audience?
So this is what I would like to tell the audience. Times are dire right now. It's looking really bleak, and the fascists are at the door. And they're drawing us out of our districts. They're doing a lot of crazy stuff. But I want people to know that these arbitrary lines, that these men in suits, that these corporate interests do not control the community. We control the community. We are the community. And right now, more than ever, is the time to get out there, know your neighbors, and let them know you are a human being just like them. You want to eat, sleep, and breathe and have clean air and clean food just like them. And don't listen to the corporate interest that tries to divide us.
Young man, Gion C. Thomas, an activist, an organizer, a former congressional candidate that wants to make a better Houston, a better Texas, a better country. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Thank you so much, Alberto, for having me.
You know, as a progressive broadcaster, media media person, writer, etc., I like to speak to people in sort of an impromptu manner, in a manner where they don't get a chance to prepare. You just kind of listen to what's in their heart, what's on their minds, etc. And when I go to rallies, most of the times, a lot of the people that I talk to are generally shy, and what they would say is that I don't do well on camera, or I don't like to be in, that's what I get most of the times. And what I invariably do is tell the person that, first of all, I'm fairly good at getting people to talk, but secondly, uh, I try to let them know that if you say something that you inadvertently didn't want to say, just let me know. I am trying to get what you want to put out. I'm not trying to find a gotcha moment or anything like that. I want to know where we are. One of the things that I've spoken about with regards to Democrats specifically and how they deal with media and how they deal with consultants. I've constantly said that the Democrats and these guys up in Washington throw all their money on the East Coast and the West Coast with expensive consultants, but they never get to where the people really are. They don't touch the people. They don't hug the people. They don't respect the way people speak. They don't respect that people have minds. And that is one of the reasons why the policies that they come out with and the way they do things is so different. If you take a look at how Danny won in New York, and the leaders of the Democratic Party, neither Schumer nor Hakeem Jeffries, will come right out and said, that's who the people of New York chose. That's who they want. That is the person that will be mayor of New York. They can't drag themselves to accept that this is a true democracy and the people decide. Why? Because Mandami has a particular moniker they don't like. Well, I'm sorry. That's who the people elected. But it shows you that when you're not close to the people, when you're not next to them, here at Politics Done Right, people write in, they call in, we get to see where their minds are. But men in the party don't know that. They know where the minds of the corporatocracy is. They know where the minds of the people who have the most money are. But somehow they really don't know where the minds of the people are. And that is one of the reasons why, even as most Americans are progressives and want progressive policies, we don't get it because, again, these people, they imagine where people are. They imagine what the center is. They imagine that folks wouldn't want certain things. And it turns out quite different. I'm in a very conservative area, and even many of the Democrats in this area tend to be fairly conservative. And I interviewed this young woman and her son. And her son initially didn't want to do anything. And as he saw the interaction between his mother and myself, he just opened up. And to tell you the truth, he made the interview. And he pointed out organically what most Americans feel. And if you doubt it, if you take a look at how the polls are going, even with the immigration thing, Donald Trump started the immigration issue as a matter of hate, to hit your carnal parts, the things that would make you want to harm the other. But as most Americans started to see what it looked like, what it made us look like, they changed their stances. And this young man, you can understand, he never had to change his stance because he was never programmed. He would never allowed his brain to be programmed. But you know what? I couldn't have been more proud of talking to somebody as I was this 18-year-old kid. I want you to listen to this and then we'll take it on the other side. Hello, ma'am. What's your name?
Courtney McGrew.
Courtney, why are you out here on a hot Saturday early in the morning when you could be in bed snoozing, but you're out here? What are you doing here?
Well, we are here protesting and trying to bring awareness and make change after all the terrible things that are happening in our country right now with ICE and everything else.
Now, tell me, what is the thing that touches you the most as far as what's occurring?
I think we are losing our due process and our rights.
Right.
I think that they are taking people off the streets, and it's wrong, and it is a scary, scary time. It's very scary to see this happening in our country, and it feels helpless. So.
It's interesting that you said that, because a lot of people are just, well, it's not happening to us, it's just happening to them, not realizing that that's how it starts in every autocratic regime. That what you get is that they start with one group, and then finally it reaches to the group who opposes them. Right. So it could be you.
Yeah, yes. And the original words from the government where it was going to be criminals that were being taken and things like that, and it's not. It's families, and nobody is illegal, and these are all people that are being taken from their families and that are being taken from.
No human is illegal.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
No human is illegal. We shouldn't treat it that way. America's supposed to be a sanctuary, and if we're saying that we can house people who are in need of housing, then we should be able to do that. And I don't see why people need to justify not caring because it won't happen to you Personally, if you care so much about your morality given by God or whatever, why do you not care about your neighbor getting taken? Or personally, I have a lot of friends. What if they get taken? So just goes to show how lonely you are if you don't really care about other people also being affected by these laws. And I want to see all of my friends having the rights that they deserve and being able to live into the future and getting married and having a family and not having to fight so hard for that every single day. I think that people should just be able to live.
Can I ask you how old you are?
I'm 18.
Let me tell you something. You don't know what you've just done to my spirit. You don't know what you've just done to my spirit, because you are the future. And to see that we have a young man growing up in this environment that can articulate that, thank you very much, brother.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. They always tell us that our kids reflect the environment that they were reared in. Thank you for rearing such a good son.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good job.
Earlier on, I was watching a program, and the program was talking about hate and how the thing that she feared the most was that a lot of the people demonstrating the hate that she saw were young men. And it kind of scared her, and that understandably so, if that was not just an offshoot. And my contention is that's exactly what it was. You know, the right has a way of making things loud and larger than they really are. So yeah, she saw a few young people displaying hate, but what I found are people more like the young man that you just heard from. Look, Gen Z, these guys, they don't pull their punches. And as I am talking to Gen Z and whatever an 18-year-old is, I don't know if an 18-year-old is considered Gen Z, I am very positive in what's occurring, at least with our younger folks, the folks that are ultimately going to take over the country. This guy not only gave me hope, he made it clear that that is the direction we are going as a country, even with the bumps that we may run into. Let me be clear. I continue to contend that this big hold up or this big rush up that we have right now with the Jeffrey Epstein and release all the documents. Let me tell you, while I am happy to see some fire under Donald Trump, I want us to stay focused on what the problem really is. The transfer of wealth of the middle class and the poor to the wealthy, the plutocracy, the oligarchy taking advantage of us all, and the autocracy that's being created in the presidency, sanctioned by a Republican Congress and a conservative Supreme, or I should say, a MAGA Supreme Court. But let me tell you what I see here. When you see Nick Fuentes, yes, anti-Semite, but a Trump lover, a Trump supporter, one of the leaders in the MAGA movement, has this to say, you know, there is something here. And I'll expand on this after you hear Nick Fuentes via Lawrence O'Donnell. Check this out.
Here's the way it was going for Donald Trump among his previously fanatical supporters before the Wall Street Journal's reporting tonight. Here's a well-known anti-Semitic, Holocaust-denying Trump supporter who had dinner with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago once, today reacting to what Donald Trump said about supporters like this guy yesterday, when Donald Trump said, I don't want their support anymore. And he called them all, including Tucker Carlson and this guy, weaklings.
And now he says, if you're not on board with the Epstein cover-up, oh, I don't want your support. You're a weakling. F*** you. F*** you. You suck. You are fat. You are a joke. You are stupid. You are not funny. You are not as smart as you think you are. You are, and honestly, and if you watch my show, you know I've been very critical. I've never been this far. This just goes to show this entire thing has been a scam. When we look back on the history of populism in America, we are going to look back on the MAGA movement as the biggest scam in American history. And the liberals were right. The MAGA supporters were had. They were. When we look back in history, we will see Trump as a scam artist.
The MAGA movement as the biggest scam in American history. The liberals were right. We never had reason to expect to hear those words from fanatical Trump supporters. I didn't expect to hear those words last night from fanatical Trump supporters. That's how fast this is moving. We never, ever had reason to come close to expecting to hear anything like that until Jeffrey Epstein, in effect, rose from the grave to separate Donald Trump from those fanatical supporters.
All right, let's get this right. It seems at this point that there is a concerted effort to screw Donald Trump. I mean, I hate to put it that way. I mean, today it comes out about him having a health issue that they're actually, we know about his swollen ankles and all kinds of stuff for some time now. We allowed the media to put a whole lot about Biden's health condition and mental acuity, etc., when we always knew Donald Trump was a nutcase and Donald Trump was overweight and likely not in very good health. But somehow the mainstream media allowed that to slide as Donald Trump continued to push the issue about Joe Biden. But here's the kicker, right? We always knew that while we put all these blames on Donald Trump as being an evil person, etc., we always understood that Donald Trump was just the face. Donald Trump was just the instantiation of something that has been occurring in this country to some would say since its inception, but on steroids since Ronald Reagan. Yes, we have made strides for the middle class and the poor and minorities, etc. Yes, we have made strides, but there has always been that boat anchor that ensures that the strides those the many make would never, ever, ever put a threat on the plutocracy. And with Trump, we're seeing that as well. We are in what's known as end state capitalism or end stage capitalism. And that is where this system has taken away as much as it could or taken away as much as it could from the vast majority of people, the people that they pretty much consider disposable. And now it has to continue growing, and it has to continue growing faster than everything else, right? That is how it's defined. That is a mathematical formula that governs this economic system. And in order for it to continue, we have to create those distractions and those fights and those hates, etc., among people. And Donald Trump was an excellent conduit. But anybody who's watched Donald Trump over the last few months have seen that he's gone from an irrational, crazy person to one that is maybe getting out of control, and it's starting to mess with the pocketbooks of the plutocracy now. They want a level of chaos, but they just want the level of chaos in such a manner that people don't understand that they are being screwed by the plutocracy and not by the other or each other. But Donald Trump may have been getting out of control for the puppeteers. And you know what? When that starts to occur, they take you out in some form or the other. And I am watching closely because, like I said, the Jeffrey Epstein story doesn't do much for me. After all, the man, Donald Trump, is a person who's openly speak about grabbing on to women's private parts. He's been convicted. He has no soul. We know he just about launders. I mean, the guy is just an evil being, and the hate and the isms in America still found it fit to put him into office. So the Epstein doesn't mean much to me, really. And it still doesn't, right? Because I don't think there's anything in those files that would make me feel any worse about Donald Trump as I do now. He's a despicable person. And whether he's also a pedophile or not, I don't know what lower level of despicability that would take him. I don't know. And not only that, I still think people would support him. But what people eventually may turn on is when they feel, especially his base, when they finally wake up to the point and say, wow, he deceived us. I don't know if you remember several blogs ago, I said, my biggest fear is what happens when MAGA wakes up. And the question is MAGA waking up? Again, I don't care about Jeffrey Epstein or the papers or any of that. What I care about is whatever incident, is it waking up MAGA? And what will the consequence be? Will it suffice for them to just rid themselves of Trump? Because after all, JD is waiting in the wings, and JD is a lot smarter and a lot worse than Trump could ever be. You know, we are in trying times, people. What I'm going to tell you all, we got to keep our eye on the ball. We have to find politicians ready to serve, ready to repeal all the evil done by Donald Trump during his administration, and start supporting Americans, the working class again. But we are in troubled times. Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willis.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willis. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program